Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Belphegor, The Devils, out July 8th on Nuclear Blast. The album has 8 tracks, 36 minutes in length, and this the band's 12th full-length studio album. They are an Austrian blackened death metal band. Now I'm going to say something about the design of this record that I barely ever say, at least as a negative. This album is too short. And I don't mean too short just because it's 36 minutes, 8 songs. I mean, even when you add the bonus track, it pushes into the 42-minute mark. But even then, it still feels short. Because it's not just about the length, it's about the experience that it gives you. And the experience that it gives you is that something is missing. When you get to the end of this record, you feel like there was a portion of this album that was supposed to be there, but it wasn't there. So you can make a point and you can make a case for an album that has this sort of movement that feels this short and increases the playability because you're going to go through it quicker, you want to listen to it again, you're not going to get bored easily, it doesn't overstretch itself, and there is merit to that kind of argument, there is merit to that kind of point. But my issue is not actually the length of the record or how the songs are put together. My issue is that I feel like the album is not giving me everything that it could. It feels like something was taken out of it, and now I'm trying to find the context in which this album works without it. Because this album has a great opening, it has a great closing. The Devils is a great opening track. It has all the attributes of Belphegor. It lets you know that you're listening to them. It lets you know what you're getting yourself into as far as the record is concerned. And then Creature of Fire is a great outro. It has great atmospheric elements. It comes together in a nice way. It rounds up the album perfectly. It gives you a sense of finality. But the middle of this album just feels a little bit hollow. It just feels a little bit empty. So I like the design, but I would like the design to be a little bit more consistent when it comes to the actual middle portion of itself. Now, once you get into the soundscape, this album could be overwhelming, overpowering at times, but it also has enough pockets within it that subjugate themselves to the listener, allowing you to better understand where you are, where you're going, and where you've been. So it's a very dynamic sounding album. It's an album that doesn't follow a pattern. It doesn't have a pattern. It's not linear from start to finish. You don't get that sense of being overrun by the sound, overrun by the experience and the atmosphere from the first to the last song, which sometimes could overshadow the quality of the album itself, and it could overburden the listener because it's just too much at the same time. So this record has the right momentums, it has the right pauses, it knows when to take a step back, it knows when it needs to allow the listener to breathe a little bit so you can better navigate through it. And then obviously being 36 minutes in length, it helps that movement, it helps that ability to process the entire sound, the experience and the atmosphere that it creates. Now, if there's one thing that stays consistent, is that atmosphere. This is a very dark record. And that darkness never really changes regardless of where the sound is going, regardless if the sound is overpowering, overwhelming, or is a little bit more subdued. That doesn't change anything at all. You're getting different shades of darkness, but darkness nevertheless. So it creates also ebbs and flows, not just in the sound, but in the atmosphere that sound puts forward. This makes the record feel a little bit more interesting. It allows the album to be a little bit more engaging and makes you dive deeper into these songs because you know that you're not going to get the same song twice, and the emotions and the ability that you have to navigate those emotions change consistently from track to track and sometimes even within the songs themselves. So it's a very well put together sounding record. The songs have a lot of strength individually. They really feel like they're giving you everything that they have, and they survive based on being anchored in 2 main pillars, the drums and the guitars. Those are the pillars of the soundscape on every single track of this record. Now, the drums are a little bit more consistent, a little bit more grounded. They allow you to feel better connected with the tracks because regardless of how strong the songs are or how many changes that they exist, obviously the sound of the drums changes with it because you can't have blast beats on every single track. You're not going to have the same momentum on every single track. The atmospheres are different, the songs are different. But what the drums are adding to the experience stays very consistent. Always in the background, creating the foundation, either bigger, thicker, overwhelming, or a little bit more controlled, a little bit more subdued, allowing other elements to jump into the forefront and dictating exactly what you're going to get from these tracks. So I love the sound of the drums. I love the power of the drums because when they're powerful, They are powerful, but I also like the versatility that they offer, that adds something to the soundscape without changing the consistency that they have from start to finish in terms of how they allow these songs to coexist with one another and exist within their own shapes. Now, the guitars on this record are super dynamic. I honestly feel like while the two are the pillars of the album, they're perhaps the pillars for different reasons. And while one offers consistency, the other one offers diversity. The melody side of the guitar sound on this record is really important because it softens the blow every so often. When you feel like you can't breathe because the sound is just overwhelming, they found a way of integrating some melodic stretches and some melodic condiments that allow the sound to be a little bit thinner, that allows the sound to be a little bit easier to process. Really important to create not just the ebbs and flows, but to create an album that feels a lot easier to understand, a lot easier to connect with. That is not just, coming at you like an avalanche. You sometimes need some breaks, you need some pauses, and the melodic stretches that are integrated within the overall design of this record definitely do that. On top of that, you have acoustic guitars that add a different sound, that add a different texture, that take you in a different direction. This album offers quite a bit of those nuances that almost feel a little bit out of character or feel a little bit outside of the scope of what the overall album has to offer. If you look at the song The Devils, the opening track, that track feels absolutely demolishing. So it almost gives you the perception that every single song is going to follow that pattern. It's not true. There are a lot of what this album is all about in that track, but that track doesn't define the record. The record defines itself. So I like the dynamic movement that the guitars have, the sound that they have, the acoustic side, the melodic side, the more chunkier side, the more compounding aspect when they become really thick and pair up with the drums to create this incredible thick, massive wall of sound that's coming at you, relentlessly coming at you. All of those movements are super interesting, super well done, and on top of that, you have some incredible solos sprinkled out throughout the entire record. There's not a single solo on this album that feels like an afterthought. Every solo had a purpose. Every solo added value to the way the song was constructed. They either added value from a musical perspective in terms of how they sound and how the song was put together around it, or they added value because of the atmosphere that those solos created in the pocket that they were in. But regardless of which one you look at it, they're always adding value. So great solos on this album, something that really allows the guitars to take a different spin, a different look, and pushes them a little bit more into the pedestal, not allowing them to be just part of the overall design, part of the overall substance, part of the overall force, power, and empowerment that the soundscape has. Now, the vocals are also very consistent from start to finish. There are some nuances, but not a lot to really take you into a different journey or take you into a different path. What you've come to expect from Belphegor vocally is exactly what you're going to get on this record. I enjoyed some of the choirs. I really enjoyed some of the backing vocals because it added depth to the overall vocal lines. It made the vocals feel more powerful. It made the vocals feel a little bit thicker. It added space. It also allowed them to feel like they had movement. So they don't feel like they're stagnant in one spot and you're just getting this linear approach from start to finish. The sound is moving, and the vocals, when you add those backing vocals in there, the vocals are moving with that same sound. This also adds a life to the record. It adds life to the experience. It makes the album breathe all around a little bit better. This is a great sounding record. This is a great record with great songs, but a record that feels unfinished. It just left me wondering what is missing, and I can't point my finger on it. I honestly can't say, I can't sit here and tell you that if they did this, the album would have been better. If they did that, the album would have been better. This record has a great start, a great finish, but in the middle, it kind of loses a little bit of itself because it doesn't have the necessary length or consistency to really keep you feeling like you're adding something to your journey, that you're adding the necessary steps in your journey. When you get to the end of the album, you're going to look back and you're going to feel like something is missing, like you lost yourself or you forgot something, or there's a lapse in memory that you can't really understand or you can't really explain, and you just feel like there's something that it's not there that should have been there. That is the only thing that really takes this album down a notch. It's an album that doesn't have a sense of completion. It doesn't go full circle. It doesn't have this sense of unity. It just has great tracks, great design, great start, great finish, but the middle is missing. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with The Devils. This is the opening track. It's a great opening track because it's powerful, it has great sound, great drums, great guitars, great vocals. Everything is very consistent. This is the core DNA of what Belphegor is all about, and you get it right at the beginning. So it's an easier way for the listener to get in, engage with the record when there is familiarity right at the top. And this song breeds a lot of familiarity. It has a great tone, it has a great dark tone to it, and that never really changes. The rest of the album is going to carry that same dark tone. It's just going to change how dark that tone gets or how light it becomes. But the darkness on this record is undeniable, and it all starts with this song. The power of the drums really stand out. The thickness of the guitars on this song really stand out. There is a somber melodic riff that exists within this track that allows you to see that in the future, that same sort of melody, that same sort of riff is going to have a very important impact on the atmosphere and on the music, on the sound itself. The demonic vocals are there, and they open the doors to what the rest of the album is going to be all about vocally. Next you have Damnation. Big sounding track. This song creates also a big atmosphere from that sound. You can't have one without the other. The two go hand in hand. It's a track that feels almost uncontrollable at times. The way it's coming at you, the power that it has, the thickness that it has, the drums are insane. It really allows the track to come off the rails, so to speak. And that sort of momentum that the drums create with the sound really feels like a runaway train. This track just feels uncontrollable from the beginning all the way to the end. Now, there are some pockets that change that perception. There's an acoustic guitar bridge that makes everything else sound even heavier, even more powerful, because it changes your eyesight completely. You go from being over here with aggression and heaviness to go all the way down here. So that change in eyesight for the listener allows everything else to be bigger without you having to really change that much around it. So a really nice touch that makes the song evolve, that makes the song grow, and it also creates movement at the exact same time. All around, one of the best sounding songs that this album offers. There are some sound experiences also towards the end of the track that give the song a little bit more depth. There's this almost Middle Eastern sound that comes in, this melody that comes in that feels very haunting, that matches the overall darkness of the album and matches the darkness that this song carries. So it's a track that has moments, that evolves with those moments, but it keeps you on path and it keeps you straight. It doesn't matter how much they change, it doesn't matter how much they added, all these little caveats. The song never really loses control, it never really loses itself. You always feel like you know exactly where you were and where you're going with it. Really important if you're going to create this much mobility within the track. Last but not least, Kingdom of Cold Flesh. Melodic and driven. This track definitely has a melodic side to it, and that melodic side allows the track to feel connected, but it also impacts the way the song drives itself. And that drive creates this avalanche of sound that's consistently coming towards you. But it doesn't come towards you with overwhelming power. It comes towards you with more of a melodic drive, so it softens the blow ever so slightly. It creates the proper undertones for the track to be easier to digest, for you to not be overwhelmed by it, but rather be engaged with it. Now, the track also has a great solo. The guitar solo on this song really jumps off the track. It adds value to the song, as I mentioned earlier, but it adds value to the experience and to the atmosphere that the song has. And then at the end, the bass comes in and the bass takes the spotlight. I didn't see this coming in a million years, but the way the song finishes with the bass is just out of this world. It's just an exclamation mark on a track that's really well designed, that offers heaviness, that offers aggression, but not in an overwhelming sense, in a very subdued, controlled, melodic approach, using the darkness of that melody to create heaviness through the atmosphere, not necessarily heaviness through the sound. Absolutely phenomenal track. That bass at the end, it's that exclamation mark. It sells you on this song. This is it, Belphegor, The Devils, out July 8th on Nuclear Blast. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.